the film's adapted from a novel by Amy Liptrot, and if anyone's interested, there is an article in The Guardian just recently by Amy Liptrot called "The Outrun: My Real Life as an Alcoholic Played Out on the Big Screen," and it's about what it's like to see your life turned into a movie. And it's a very interesting kind of, you live this story as a book, and then you live it as a film, and it's anyway, it's an interesting thing. So it's directed by Nora Finkscheid, who's obviously was referred to in that interview. She made System Crasher, which is a film which I really, really liked. And if you have access, go back and listen to our review of System Crasher, because we did that on Kermode and Mayo show, and I thought it was a terrific movie. This is a film about addiction on the one hand, about the way that someone can become engulfed by addiction. And the only escape from that is by isolating themselves from the world in which their addiction has flourished. And Simon, you were just talking about, there's the first half of the movie is very different to the second half of the movie. And in this particular case, the story takes our central character to the Orkneys, which is about as far away as you can get. And then, in fact, like off an island. Now, I haven't been to the Orkney Islands. I have been to Shetland. So I do, to some extent, we did the Shetland Film Festival for 17 years. So I do, to some extent, understand that thing about being in a place when you feel like you're at the world's end, you're away from everything. There is nothing beyond you but the sea, and then, well, Norway eventually. And I think that one of the things that the film does is to capture that sense of physical displacement, and the way in which, when physically displaced, it enables a kind of form of reconnection. There is one particularly joyous scene of swimming. In fact, the author makes a cameo in the film during a swimming scene. But there is a scene which you talked about her going into the water. And you really feel that what you're doing is seeing a character come to life by being washed in the sea, by immersing themselves in the briny, by being just completely engulfed by this other thing. So I think Saoirse Ronan's performance is super committed. It also is impressively lacking in melodrama. It was very interesting talking about Stephen Graham, or Stevie Graham, as I'd love to be able to say.
Yes.
Our mates. In The Virtues, I think that speaks volumes. I also think stylistically the film, if you've seen System Crasher, you kind of know what this director is capable of. There's also, I think, a stylistic echo there of a film called For Those in Peril, which is a George Mackay film, again, set way up. And a sense of the location, of the distance, of the loneliness, but also how loneliness can make unexpected, if communal, bonds. And, that thing when you were talking about the experience of people who've endured addiction, saying, if I don't laugh, I'm going to cry. And I think a lot of the film is on that kind of that borderline. Also, incidentally, terrific performances by Saskia Reeve, Stephen Delane. There are so many things to kind of commend. But in the end, you come back to making any film about addiction is a tough ask. Making any film that basically says to the audience, come with us on a journey that will involve the central character removing themselves from a world which is very kind of, obviously cinematic and throbbing, partying and all that. And they are going to go to the ends of the earth in a very kind of Herzogian way. And you're never going to feel that you're lost in that, I think, is quite the challenge. And I think they've done a pretty impressive job of it. The most impressive thing is I never thought it succumbed to melodrama, and heaven knows there are enough chances for that to happen. And I suspect that people with knowledge of the subject will think that it's an authentic portrayal. I suspect that that's the case. I don't know definitively, but it has the smack of authenticity about it. And I felt that more so as well after reading that article that was written by the author of the source book.
If you get a chance to see The Virtues, you should definitely do that, because the Stevie Graham reference. I remember interviewing him about it. It is just one of you just think, this guy isn't acting. This guy is drunk. But obviously that's not true. It obviously was. It's an astonishing performance. But most also intriguingly, the producers of this film. So that is Saoirse and Jack Loudon, her other half, and there may well be other producers. Say this is the first movie that's been shot in the Orkneys.
Yeah, is that
Which
right? And that's astonishing.
I mean, I haven't gone through to check, but that's what they say, that there has never been a movie that has been shot in the Orkneys.
Wow.
So,
I mean, that
whether
really...
they meant that or whether they meant Papa Westry, which is the actual island that she ends up on. Because as you referred, there's this narration line where Saoirse says that the UK is an island off Europe, that the Orkneys are islands off the UK, off Scotland, and then Papa Westry is an island off the Orkneys.
That's right.
Making that point is which you were making, it just getting more and more remote. But yes, apparently they never shot a movie there. But, we could be stand corrected. This isn't our fact. This is the fact from the makers of the Outrun. Mm-hmm. But I think if you can see it in the cinema, then do, because the shots that are in the Orkney Islands, and particularly Papa Westry, are stunning.
Yeah.
So.
It really is that the end of the world feeling, not in a bad way. It's what's impressive. It's the end of the world feeling in a sort of sense of escape, but also reconnection. And I do, as somebody who believes that swimming in the sea is the greatest thing that anyone can do ever for their mental health, I thought that scene was absolutely brilliant. And she was in the sea for 15 minutes, apparently.
Yeah.